Hi everybody, Joe Price here. In this video, we're going to be talking about the conversion from binary into decimal. So in the previous video, I explained how the arithmetic logic unit is put together. And just a slight little update since the last video, I did change the memory register a little bit. It actually now requires preloading of a skeleton, but it's 3 to 4 times faster than the previous ALU that I featured in the last video. In any case, today's focus will be on the actual conversion from binary into decimal. So just to do a sample calculation, let's say that we have the number 70 input into memory, input 3 into the MQ register, hit the multiplication button, so we'll have 70 times 3, and our final answer 210 here. So the converter kicks into gear. Just bring this up on the map here, and we can see that the NPC is whizzing around doing something there, and eventually it'll finish and the answer will pop up on screen. So let's wait a little bit. There it is, 210, the correct answer to our multiplication. Alright, so let's explore how exactly this conversion takes place. What are the key components involved in the entire process, and how are those components actually linked together? Okay, so let's head over to the tutorial area. And over in the tutorial area, we've replicated some of these major conversion functions. First things first, what you see on screen here is the converter from binary to BCD. This entire process is actually broken up into 2 stages. So this is the first stage, and after we've converted into BCD, then we'll convert it into decimal. It's not known currently whether or not there's even a good way in Terraria to convert directly from binary to decimal. In real-life computers, this kind of conversion is done through BCD first. So what exactly does this mean, converting from binary to BCD? What the heck is BCD? Well, BCD is binary coded display. So here is the way it functions. When it comes to processing in actual computers, it's done in binary. The arithmetic logic unit, all the calculations are in binary. So here's an example of a number that we might store in a register in binary format. So for instance, I might have 42 inputs into my register in binary. So if I want to represent this 42 in BCD, well, I have a BCD format that has a number in the 10 slot in binary, in 10 slot, and a number in binary in the 1 slot. So if I want to represent 42 in BCD, I just need to input 4 in binary in my 10s slot, and I just need to input 2 in binary in my 1 slot. Okay, so this is actually a more compact way of expressing the number 42. After converting it to BCD this way, it'll become a lot easier to convert this one more time to decimal. So now the big question is, how exactly do we go from having a number in binary here on the right to having it in BCD format on the left? So in actual computers, this conversion is done in a number of different ways. One of those ways is to use a so-called double-dabble algorithm. The double-dabble algorithm translates very nicely in terms of Terraria mechanism, Terraria logic. So that's the one that I've chosen to employ here. Now this algorithm works as follows. It consists of 2 repeating steps. So the first step is a shift. What that means is we'll take whatever is input into this register over here and simply shift it to the left 1 time. So the 2 here, or at least the on signal in the 2 position, will shift to the 4 position. The on signal in the 8 position will switch to the 16, and the on signal in the 32 position will switch over to the one position in the BCD. After a shift takes place, if a number 5 or greater ends up appearing in either the ones digit or the tens digit of this BCD format, then 3 is going to be added to that number. So if, let's say, 5 all of a sudden appears after a shift in the ones slot, then that 5 will be converted to an 8. Okay, so after any such conversions, we're back to shifting to the left by 1 bit. Then we'll do the conversions again, any number 5 or greater. Once again, we'll add 3 to that when it appears in the tens slot or the 1 slot. Then shift again, then add 3 again if necessary, so on and so forth, until we repeat this X number of times. And that X corresponds to exactly how many bits we have in this particular register. So this register, 6-bit register, we need to shift 6 times here. So that's the actual algorithm. Now the reason behind this algorithm, why it is that it works, it's outside of the scope of this particular video tutorial, but you're definitely welcome to look it up on Wikipedia, for instance. It'll explain things very nicely why this approach actually functions. Alright, so let's instead focus on the individual units of this binary to BCD converter. And there are 3 such units. So one is the shifter that constantly shifts the information to the left. The lookup tables that check to see if we have 5 or more stored in BCD, and then add 3 to that. And then finally a repeater that's going to instruct this entire mechanism to cycle 6 times. Okay, so let's head over here to take a look at the individual components and how they function. Okay, so first is the shifter. First, let's demonstrate the shifter in action. So for instance, let's say I have these 2 positions in the on state. When I hit the lever here, it's connected to the skeleton statue by a blue wire, and it'll just teleport the skeleton into this Hoiktronics. Send the skeleton down this track, it'll die at the very end, and it'll shift those 2 torches. It'll shift the signal 1 unit to the left. Let's take a look. Yeah, there we go. Shifted 1 to the left. We'll do it again. So yeah, just keep shifting like that, 1 to the left. Let's do another example. Let's say we have this, and once again, every time I send the skeleton through, everything will shift 1 to the left. Yeah, just like that. So the way that this is wired, the way that we can accomplish this, is through a dual feedback mechanism. Okay, so what that means is, let's say I turn on the torch over here, so I put this in the on state. That toggles a pair of Hoik teeth. We have a top Hoik tooth and a bottom Hoik tooth, and the state of these Hoik teeth dictates whether or not this particular pressure plate will actually be activated by the skeleton. So in the on state, it's the bottom Hoik tooth that is the deactuated Hoik tooth, so it's going to ensure that the skeleton actually activates that particular pressure plate. So the dual feedback mechanism, we have one bit of feedback through the green wire. So when the skeleton hits that pressure plate, it'll toggle this pair of Hoik teeth, so anything that's on will be shut off. And the other feedback is through the blue wire, and it feeds back on the pair of Hoik teeth in the adjacent position to the left. So once we toggle this pair of Hoik teeth, it'll cause this torch to light up. So this is now going to be in the on state, which means the next time the skeleton passes through, it'll be this particular pressure plate that'll be the live pressure plate, and this pressure plate will not have any effect. Yeah, so let's take a look. Send a skeleton down once, and yeah, we saw the feedback mechanism in action. It toggled this pair of Hoik teeth, and it toggled this pair of Hoik teeth as well. So that's it. That is all that's involved in the shifter mechanism. So the shifter, it's linked to one or more lookup tables. We have one lookup table per digit. So whatever digit we have, whatever number we have that's in BCD format, of course it'll be the numbers 0 through 9, then we will perform an operation on that number if it's more than 4. And like I said before, it's specifically 3 that we're going to be adding to any number that's 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 that would appear in our BCD format here. So currently we have 0 present in BCD format here. So the default path for the skeleton to take is the path at the very bottom. Just to briefly show the wiring here, when we hit the lever for the conversion to take place here, adding 3 to the number if it's 5 or more, we'll be summoning a skeleton to the teleporter at the bottom left, and the path it's going to take is all along that bottom until it hits the teleporter at the end of that path, and then it'll just be teleported through the red wire here. It'll be teleported to the lava trap. So the skeleton passing through there, it does nothing. It doesn't activate any pressure plates along the way. So the 0 that might be present here, or any number up to 4 actually, nothing is going to happen to that number. For instance, if I input 1, that alters nothing about that particular path. So same outcome, no effect when I pull the lever. Yeah, so there we go. Skeleton goes straight across, nothing is happening here. Same goes if I input 2, path isn't altered. When I input 3, the path isn't altered. When I input 4, the path does get altered. See at the very bottom, this Hoik tooth has now become actuated, which means the skeleton, when it hits that junction point, it'll actually be hoiked upwards. But when it gets hoiked upwards, there's a ceiling here that prevents the skeleton from going any higher. So it'll end up going to the right, and then there are these down Hoik teeth, and there's no floor here, so the skeleton will necessarily be pushed down and then across again back to that teleporter. So in other words, it's a more roundabout way of going to the same teleporter, but once again, nothing is going to be happening here as far as our number 4 input in BCD format. Let's demonstrate that. Now, we see the skeleton taking that alternate path, nothing is happening. So things are a little bit different when we have 5 input. Okay, so when I input 5, what changes here is these down Hoik teeth are actuated. And when they are actuated, they will no longer force the skeleton to go down into that teleporter at the very bottom. Instead, the skeleton is going to pass straight through in our first track in this lookup region. So when it passes straight through, you see that there are 3 pressure plates along the way. So these pressure plates are hooked up through wires to the inputs in binary up top here. So we see that the first pressure plate that's going to be activated will switch this 8 on. The next pressure plate, through blue wire, it'll turn this 4 off. And the final pressure plate here, connected through blue wire, it'll turn the 1 off. So when we turn the 8 on and the 4 and 1 off, well, we've just converted the 5 into an 8. So in other words, we performed the addition of 3 to the number 5 here. Okay. If I input 6, well, what happens here now is the ceiling has opened up. Let's take a look at that again. Okay, so as explained before, the skeleton would go up and it hits that ceiling. Well, this ceiling opens when I input the 2. So that means that when 6 is input, the skeleton is going to be hoiked upwards and end up passing through the middle Hoik track. When it passes through the middle Hoik track, there are 4 pressure plates here, meaning the 8 and the 1 will be turned on, the 4 and the 2 will be turned off. So that way, we'll be converting the 6 into a 9. Let's see this in action. Yeah, so there we go, 6 to a 9. Next, if I have 7 input, the skeleton will take the Hoik path. Now it's prevented from reaching the middle track, so it'll take the track right below the middle track, and that will convert this 7 into a 10. Let's take a look. Yep, so there we go, 7 converted to a 10. Next, when 8 is input, now all of a sudden the Hoik tooth at a different junction point is actuated. So now the skeleton is going to go straight up through the top track, and when it goes through the top track, the pressure plates will create an on state at the 2 and 1 positions. So then we're going to end up with 11. Makes sense. We want to convert from 8 to 11. Let's take a look. Yep, took the top track. We got ourselves 11 here. And finally, if we have 9 input, well, now that ceiling has closed here, so the skeleton, when it's hoiked upwards, it'll take the Hoik track that's second from the top. And when it passes through, it'll convert the 9 into a 12. Yeah, so there we go. Got a 12 as our outcome. So there we have it. 0 through 4, nothing happens. In this lookup table, 5 through 9, we'll add 3 to the number that is stored there. Now, of course, we might be wondering, why wouldn't we have conversions for numbers greater than 9? And the reason for that is through the shifter, it's not possible to end up with a number greater than 9 here, so long as we always follow the shifting by adding 3 to whatever is stored in BCD format. Let me illustrate. So to end up with a 10 after a shift, we would need to start off with 5. So before the shift, these two would need to be on, and then after the shift, we would end up with 8 and 2 lit up. But this is not possible, because prior to the shift taking place, this would be converted from a 5 to an 8. So therefore, we don't have to worry about numbers 10 through 15 showing up in BCD here after any shift event. That's why this is only 5 tracks, this particular lookup table. Okay, so all we need to do then is link the shifter to these lookup tables, 1 lookup table per digit if we have multi-digit numbers. We'll deal with the repeater in just a second. For the moment, let's take a look at how we can link the shifter to the lookup tables. Alright, so this is going to be on manual, meaning I'm going to have to pull a lever each time I want a shift and a conversion +3 to any number that's in BCD 5 or more. So I'll be pulling a lever every time I need to create a cycle like that. And because my register here is 6 bits, I'm going to have to pull the lever 6 times. But first things first, let's take a look at how this is all wired. So when I pull the lever, it's connected to a skeleton statue, which will teleport the skeleton into the first lookup table here. When it passes through this lookup table, and again, adds 3 to any number 5 or greater there, when it passes through the first lookup table, then when it reaches the teleporter at the end, come over here, when it reaches the teleporter at the end, it'll teleport the skeleton into the next lookup table. When it passes through the next lookup table, it'll end up getting teleported all the way over here at the start of this entire shifter mechanism. So however many lookup tables we have, if we had, let's say, 4-digit numbers that we needed to handle, then we would have this chain of events where the skeleton is teleported into the first lookup table, then the second lookup table, all the way up to the 4th lookup table, and after it passes through the 4th lookup table, it'll again be teleported into the shifter. Now here, at the end of that shifter, there is a lava trap, so we'll be killing the skeleton off. But when we have this on full auto, that skeleton will go elsewhere. We'll explain that in a second. All right, so let's input a number into our register on the far right here. So let's suppose that we input 40, 56. So what should end up happening here in the very end, after pulling this lever 6 times, is we should end up with a 5 in our tens slot, and we should end up with a 6 in our 1 slot. Now, the first pull, all that's going to happen is we'll have these 3 on states shifted to the left. Okay, but remember, the skeleton will pass through the lookup tables first before entering the shifter. Let's take a look. Yeah, there we go. So everything shifted to the left by 1 bit. And note that because we only have 1 present here in BCD, then the skeleton that's going to pass through the lookup table is not going to alter anything. That means my second pull of the lever, I'll just shift everything 1 bit to the left again, and nothing else is going to happen. Let's take a look. Yeah, so there we go. Everything shifted to the left by 1 bit. Once again, because we only have 3 present in this BCD1's digit, nothing is going to happen as far as these lookup tables are concerned. So in the end, we'll end up shifting everything 1 bit to the left once more. Yeah, just like that. Okay, so the next pull of the lever, the lookup table will perform an alteration. So we have 7 right now. So what's going to happen is the 7 will be converted to a 10. So the 8 and 2 will be lit up. And then when the skeleton passes through the shifter, that on signal that's at the 8 and 2 positions, that'll shift 1 bit to the left. Let's take a look. Yeah, so there we go. So our next pull, again, nothing is going to happen as far as the lookup tables are concerned. We only have 1 here and we have a 4 here. So all that's going to happen is everything is going to be shifting to the left 1 bit. Yeah, just like that. And that was our 5th pull. So our 6th pull will go as follows. The 8 will have to convert to 11 after the skeleton passes through the lookup table here. And then everything will shift 1 unit, 1 bit to the left, and that'll be the end of it. Let's take a look. Yeah, so there we go. And indeed, we ended up with 5 in the 10 slot here, 6 in the 1 slot, 56 in BCD format. Okay, so that's how the double dabble mechanism works. Now there's just one more thing that we have to add to this entire conversion from binary to BCD, and that is we don't want to be pulling the lever 6 times. We want to pull it once and have it fully automated. So we need an extra mechanism here that will basically dictate how many times the skeleton will cycle through this entire system of the 2 lookup tables and the shifter. So the repeater mechanism is illustrated up top here. So the repeater consists of just a single Hoik track, and however many times the action needs to be repeated, that's exactly how many pressure plates we're going to have along the way. Okay, not counting the pressure plate that's on this early teleporter. The idea is if the skeleton is able to make it all the way to the end, it'll be teleported away from that teleporter at the end into the lookup tables plus the shifter. If the skeleton gets teleported away early and never actually make it all the way to the end, well, that signals the end of the cycling process. Okay, so the first time the skeleton will pass all the way through, it'll activate this pressure plate at the very end. Now here I've got it set up so just it gets teleported into the lava trap, but of course when I hook it up to the shifter plus lookup tables, the skeleton will go to a different destination. So when it hits that pressure plate, there's a feedback mechanism, and it feeds back on this pair of Hoik teeth. It'll flip-flop them, and when that bottom Hoik tooth becomes deactuated, that means that this pressure plate will be activated the second time the skeleton passes through. And when that pressure plate gets activated the second time the skeleton passes through, there's another feedback mechanism which will toggle the actuation state of the next adjacent pair of Hoik teeth. So this way, every time a skeleton passes through, it enables a pressure plate to the immediate left that will then be activated by a subsequent skeleton. So 6 pressure plates, meaning the skeleton will pass through 6 times all the way to that end teleporter, and the 7th time, that 7th pressure plate, once it's activated, well, it'll just yank that skeleton out of this Hoik track. It'll never make it through at that point. Let's illustrate. Let's count this out. So it's 1, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that was 6 times, made it all the way to the end. And now that I've toggled this pair of Hoik teeth, you'll see how the skeleton will get teleported right at this early teleporter. There we go. Never made it to the end. That signaled the end of the cycling process. So there we have it. This is how the repeater functions. There are other ways that this can be done. Maybe even ways of shortening up this particular track, but this is what I decided to go with. It works pretty well when NPCs are used as signaling agents. Okay, so let's take a look at this repeater in action. We'll come over here, and this is now the full binary BCD converter with one pull of the lever, and the rest is completely automated. All right, so as before, let's input some number into the register here. Let's actually go with what I had initially. So I've got 42 that's entered into this particular register. So when I pull the lever, here is how everything is going to go down. So this lever is connected through red wire to a skeleton statue, so it's going to teleport that skeleton into the repeater track. It always starts by going through the repeater track first. When it passes through the repeater track, just go to the bottom here, it'll end up teleporting the skeleton right at the end through the blue wire, end up teleporting it into the first lookup table here. When it passes through the first lookup table, at the end, any of these teleporters will teleport the skeleton into the second lookup table. And when they pass through the second lookup table, the skeleton will be teleported to the start of the shifter. When it passes all the way through the shifter, right at the end, it'll be teleported through the blue wire here back into the repeater. So it keeps cycling like that until, again, this pressure plate on this early teleporter in the repeater gets activated. And at that point, the skeleton will just be teleported into this lava trap, terminating this entire process. Alright, so let's see this in action, completely automated. And again, you'll see the skeleton cycling 6 times. Okay, so we've got 42. Let's see if 42 ends up appearing in BCD format here. Let's take a look. Perfect. 42. Final outcome in BCD display. Let's do it one more time. Let's say we have 38 in binary. Let's see if it gets converted into 38 in BCD. Perfect, 38. And again, the skeleton cycled exactly 6 times. We've got 38 in BCD as our final output here. So this is how the binary to BCD conversion takes place, and this is the double dabble mechanism in action in Terraria. Alright, one last thing to address. So whatever we have in BCD, we need to convert that into decimal. The conversion, the way that this takes place is through one giant lookup table that you see on the right here. Whatever we have stored in BCD, well, let's reproduce down here. So for instance, let's say we have 6. that's stored in BCD. So lookup table is just sitting right on top of that. And a skeleton will enter this lookup table, go down a particular Hoik track. There's 10 of them in total, corresponding to all 10 digits, 0 through 9. And then the appropriate number will pop up on screen. Because whatever is input here, it'll affect what path ultimately the skeleton is going to take in this lookup table. So the idea is that these lookup tables, they're sitting directly on top of these BCD 10s digit, 1s digits, wherever other digits we have, if we have numbers that go beyond 2 digits. Yeah, so we would need to have quite a number of these lookup tables if we have the number that we want to convert, that's multi-digit number. Okay, so let's just see this in action. First things first, when 0 is present in BCD format here, if I pull the lever, the default path that the skeleton is going to take is the very bottom one. So it's going to appear here, it'll be hoiked to the right, it'll go up, and it'll be hoiked down this particular path, passing over those pressure plates, we'll have 0 appear. Yeah, so there we go, 0 has appeared. And just to shut that off, I'm just going to send a skeleton again. The actual shut off in the full mechanism, there are reset mechanisms which are not discussed in this tutorial. Okay, next, if I turn on the 1, notice that it actually has actuated certain blocks and certain Hoik teeth, but the important one that just got actuated is this one right here. The skeleton is going to pass through when it gets hoiked upwards. The ceiling is no longer here, so it'll be hoiked upwards to the next Hoik track, and that's the one that's going to convert the BCD number 1 into the decimal number 1. Let's take a look. Yeah, just like that. Yep, let me shut this off. Okay, another example. If I have 2 input into BCD here, so now it has actuated this with a Hoik tooth, so that means the skeleton passing through will actually be hoiked up down a different vertical path, and it'll reach the ceiling here, be hoiked to the right, passing over the pressure plates, which will cause 2 to pop up. Yeah, so there we go. Okay, so on and so forth. I won't go through all of these. If you take a look at the wiring, again, it's a little bit complicated. The one's position in BCD here, it actually actuates or deactuates quite a number of Hoik teeth and quite a number of blocks. So this I would suggest, playing around with this mechanism yourself. And again, you can download the map here. Play around this mechanism and just see the logic behind why some of these Hoik teeth are have actuators on them. And you can watch for yourself how the skeleton takes the different tracks depending on which number is actually input in that BCD format here. The main thing I wanted to emphasize here is that these lookup tables are very convenient when you have a small number of things to look up, and here we only need to look up the conversions for 10 digits, so it makes it nice and convenient. Alright, so that means that if we link the binary to BCD converter with the BCD to decimal converter, in the end we're going to end up with a full conversion from binary to decimal. Alright, so that's how it all functions, that's how it's all built. And if this is something that you'd like to try building for yourself, not even necessarily the computer, just the converter, then you're welcome to download this particular tutorial world and explore some of these mechanisms for yourself. I strove to make these mechanisms as compact as possible, but that doesn't mean that improvements are not possible. So if you play around with this, you might be able to find an even better way of doing this, and make it even more compact or even faster. It takes a while to cycle through, and if there are a lot of digits in a number, then it might take quite a while for the cycling to happen. So if you can find ways of improving the speed of this, well, that would be fantastic. It'd be very interesting to see if others can come up with much better ways of doing the conversions here. So in any case, that's it for now. I'll be returning to more Hoiktronics tutorials sometime later, but up next, I'm going to be returning to regular Terraria gameplay, and I'll be focusing a little bit more on events, bosses, stuff like that, and I'll be again voicing those, explaining some of these, some of the farms or some of the grinders that'll be featured in upcoming videos. Alright guys, so that's it for now. Question and comments, I'll welcome them, and in the description box you'll find a link to the map for download, and soon enough there'll be a link to a written guide as well. Alright, that's it for now. Bye for now.